世界嘅香港，大家好！依家係香港早上8:04星期三。咁今日咧，我哋會雙語廣播，咁就請嚟咧一位識咗好耐嘅朋友啦 ，Mark Clifford。咁 Mark 咧就係壹傳媒嘅前上市公司嘅董事，亦都係前南華早報嘅總編輯。咁就我認識佢咧，就係喺山頂嘅補選喺2017年嘅時候咧。就撞到 Mark 啦，咁就同佢傾偈，咁到依家都有幾年時間。Mark, I still remember I first met you when I was running for by-election at the peak, and we were kind of talking when you were jogging. That's how we met.
And it was quite a while ago. My knees aren't so good. I don't jog too much anymore, but I'm glad I stopped and talked to you. That was really great. And that was one of the great things about Hong Kong in those days, right? Like people would stand out on the street, you know, engaging in political activities.
Yes. And of course, I lost. It's very difficult to win a seat at the peak, which is traditionally for the pro-establishment camp. But well, we're not going to talk too much about running for district council or even legislative council, because the whole thing got dismantled. But more so about your new book on Hong Kong, your right now your new mission in life, which is that you head up an NGO that is pretty much to stand with Hong Kong. And then people know of you last as the commentator, moderator of sorts for Mr. Jimmy Lai's live talk show on Twitter until last year, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, the end of 2020. It's been more than a year now, and Jimmy's been in jail he was in jail for all of 2021.
Correct. Yeah. And in different shapes or form, we are acutely aware of what's going on, and then we express our concerns in one way or the other. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the new NGO that you head up. It's very long. I still don't get the name right. And let me say something in Cantonese for like 20 seconds. Mark Clifford 咧就係南華早報嘅前總編輯，亦都係壹傳媒嘅上市公司嘅董事啦。咁依家佢身處喺美國，咁我就想問下 Mark 咧，佢最近出咗有本新書，同埋咧講下咧佢有一個新嘅 NGO 喺美國咧，佢就 head up 咗，係關注香港嘅。I guess maybe we'll start with the NGO that you head up now.
Sure. It's the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong, and it's very much what the name suggests. We are fighting for Hong Kong freedom. Above all, most pertinently, of course, would be to try to get the political prisoners out of jail. I mean, it's incredible. When we think back to a few years ago when we first met, I mean, or even around the time of when we ran into each other again in the summer of 2020, around the time of the primary, I mean, who would have thought that we'd be talking about mass political imprisonment in Hong Kong? I mean, over 10,000 people have been arrested in the last couple of years, last 3 years, I guess, on politically related charges. And most notoriously, of course, we have the national security law, where we have scores of people who are being held without bail, without trial, no prospect really seriously of when their trial is going to be. I mean, it's outrageous. And so the first mission, I mean, some of us were mostly, well, in fact, we're all Americans on the board. We're all Guilo. We all have a love for Hong Kong, and we just think it's wrong that the basic law has been trashed, that the freedoms promised and the rights promised in the basic law are being disregarded. But more than just our love for Hong Kong, I think it's Hong Kong and what the Chinese Communist Party is trying to do there is a kind of test case. It's what they'd like to do for the rest of the world. And it's really where I think people who believe in freedom and the values of an open, pluralistic, diverse, tolerant society are having to push back to defend what's left of Hong Kong, which used to be all those things. It used to be a tolerant, open, pluralistic, diverse society that allowed for freedom of speech. I mean, why could Jimmy Lai and the Apple Daily people, we have 7 people, including Jimmy, who are in jail, have been in jail for the better part of a year now, for things that they'd been doing for the last 26 years at Apple Daily. Of course, Apple's been shut, but why should we just allow this kind of outrageous behavior from the CCP to go unpunished and unopposed, I guess? I mean, we can't really punish the CCP, but we can at least show that there's resistance, that the eyes of the world are on the Chinese, that their goal of smothering Hong Kong and then moving on to Taiwan is not going to go quite as they would like, that there will be and there is resistance. The eyes of the world are on China, particularly as the Olympics are going to open at the end of next week.
Right. 咁Mark 嗱，頭先佢講咗好多啦，我唔需要翻譯啦。咁但係即係我反而我想問下 Mark 咧，之前佢嘅角色就係一個 moderator，咁但係依家似乎就比較more vocal. I'm not going to translate what you just said because I guess 70% of the audience know what you were saying. I was just commenting. Your role before was more of a moderator when you run the Twitter show with Jimmy, but now it seems like your new role. It's as you alluded to earlier, you started this NGO with some Guaylos, right, in America. So it's a predominantly a U.S. White group, or is it very inclusive with Asians who are fighting for Hong Kong's freedom?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have quite a few Asians involved in various aspects. Some of whom want to be identified and are on. You'll see if you go on our website, and some of them don't. Particularly, as you can imagine, people who still have strong ties to, let's just say, China. I don't want to say anything more, but I think it's indicative of the kind of fear and the long reach that the CCP has, or at least people believe that it has. And it's a sad thing. It's also sad. I turned 64 last August, and that was the day that I took over as president of this NGO. It wasn't really what I expected to be doing. I've been a journalist. I've done a lot of different things, but I wasn't planning to become a human rights activist at the age of 64. But seeing Jimmy Lai manacled, in chains, deliberately humiliated, talking with colleagues, or begging us to, as the board of directors at Next Digital, to try to help and protect them when all the directors who were in Hong Kong were under arrest or incarcerated or otherwise, indisposed. And those of us who were outside really couldn't do anything. We were powerless to stop the destruction of Apple. And so, as I said, we've got 7 people, including Jimmy, in jail. And I am, I guess those of us who are outside who are able to speak, I just think have a responsibility to do everything we can to show the world the shameful behavior of the CCP and its broken promises in Hong Kong.
Right. And this is more than surreal, to be honest with you. And also seeing you wearing the hat as an activist at the age of 64, as you mentioned as well, because the Mark that I know is more mild and mild temper, and then the jogger, right? Like stay healthy, but wearing like a human activist hat is not easy, because I think of some other activists, they are being targeted, and Natasha Lin, Wu Kaishi, and now Mark Clifford wearing that hat. But still, is there? And you are right too. It seems like everyone got arrested, and there's only a few people who are like directors at the listed company level. So you are precious in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad thing. And of course, it's a matter of public record that we have an inspector appointed by the financial secretary. I think his report is due any day now, who has been charged with by the FS with looking into the affairs of Next Digital. My understanding from the outside is that the government seems to want to blame the management and the board of directors for the collapse of Next Digital. They want to act like there's still free press in Hong Kong. I mean, it's just, it would be a joke if it weren't so serious, and if there weren't people in jail, if there weren't, 1,000 people almost who lost their jobs because of this, if the if the company really hadn't been stolen and destroyed by the government, and yet they want to somehow go after us and suggest that it's our fault. I mean, it would be a comedy if it weren't so tragic.
Well, I as a hedge fund guy, as an analyst, and also as a commentator of sorts, I have witnessed definitely, how much the Nix Digital, both Nix Magazine and Apple Daily, they have defended Hong Kong. And honestly, I relocated back to Hong Kong in the year 2000, and I was watching people like Ellen Lee from the Liberal Party, Martin Lee, of course, the godfather of democracy, and Jimmy Lai. These people represent Hong Kong, and I have done my due diligence. And because with Nix Magazine and also Apple Daily, and I was thinking, hey, if they let Nix Magazine and Apple Daily survive after 1997, maybe there's a case for overseas Chinese Canadian like myself to relocate back and try to contribute to Hong Kong. And that's what I did 21, 22 years ago. And I could not imagine they dismantled the newspaper like in a few months. Same thing with the Stand News and also Citizen News, which they decide to close up shop afterwards. So they are trying to condemn the directors not doing a good job right now. Is that what the Hong Kong?
Well, we don't know because we're waiting for the report, but it's a matter of public record that we have this special inspector. Again, these things are governed by secrecy, but the financial secretary and the SFC have said that they are looking into the company. I honestly don't know what's going on. And then, of course, the Financial Reporting Council and the Hong Kong Exchange also were making various inquiries. Maybe they're asking the government too. Maybe they're asking John Lee, who was Secretary for Security, who put the freeze order on the bank accounts. Maybe they're asking him to testify. I don't know. But it'll be very interesting to see how they spin this, because I mean, the interesting thing is that the government still wants people in the outside world to believe that there's free press and there's freedom in Hong Kong, because they, of course, want to have it both ways. They want Hong Kong to be a business and an economic city, and they have this kind of distorted view of Marxism that is the stage of development we're at right now. And yet they want to be able to do that with total control. Now, I mean, Edward, you're a finance guy. You know very well you can't. Well, we've never in history that I know of had an international financial center where you don't have free flow of information. If you don't have free flow of information, you really can't have an efficient market. What you have is a rumor-driven market that's open to all sorts of manipulation. Maybe that's what they want, but they want the rest of the world, the JP Morgans and Goldman Sachses of the world, to believe that Hong Kong is just fine, and Apple Daily or a few publications that doesn't mean anything. Still got the South China Morning Post, and so everything is fine.
And it is not fine, to be honest with you. When I see Tara Joseph, the president of AmCham, commented that Hong Kong as a financial center is over, and I truly believe that it is over. And I've seen asset management firms doing all these business continuity plans. They won't say it like a blow the horn and say, hey, I'm leaving Hong Kong tomorrow. They would slowly and move the key personnel outside of Hong Kong, let's say to Singapore or Japan, like if they have a Japanese business, or Taiwan. That's what asset management firms are doing, because freezing the bank accounts is more than surreal. I saw that it happened to Stan News and also those speech pathologists who just try to create a cartoon book.
I mean, that case is among the most absurd. I mean, you've got speech therapists who wrote a children's book and they're in jail indefinitely without bail, awaiting trial, or at least one of the authors is. I mean, come on, who can take this seriously? So look, you still have investment banks that think they can make some money, and asset managers that think they can make some money, and China's too big to ignore, and maybe they'll come. But we have COVID on top of the NSL, and I think it's pretty tough. And I think as you know, we're starting to see pretty significant outflows of people, and indications I get from people there is that once the school year is over, a lot of people are just going to pack up and leave. Anybody who's got kids, they've gone, they go through the schools are open, schools are closed, nobody can travel. It's, for expats that thought they were going to have this exotic, nice life jetting around Asia, obviously they haven't had that for the last couple of years. So I just think it's a compounding of issues that are going to make it very, very hard for Hong Kong to have any semblance of an open international city. I mean, we've certainly seen it in the response to COVID, where Carrie Lam and her government are trying to be more like the mainland than the mainland itself almost. I mean, it's really quite something to watch.
Okay. So before we talk about your book, tell us more about the Committee for Hong Kong. Sorry about the long name.
Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong.
Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong. And it's a registered NGO in the US, right? Okay. And currently, because of the sensitivity, not a lot of people want to say how they participate, but you are the figurehead, kind of.
Yeah. So again, we're very focused on political prisoners. We'd like to start getting some out. As a matter of fact, I think you'll see pressure on China around the Olympics. China's called for an Olympic truce. The United Nations General Assembly has called for an Olympic truce. It's supposed to be a time of friendship and understanding and goodwill around the games. And I think a really good place to start with that would be to start releasing some of the political prisoners in Hong Kong. If they want to leave Hong Kong, let them leave Hong Kong. I mean, these are, people like Jimmy Lai and Lee Chuk-yen, Gwyneth Ho, Joshua Wong. I mean, we could go on and on. I'm sorry to
like the ticker symbol here, Mark, you're seeing underneath. Like Ziying, Chen Pui-min, Zhang Kim-hong. These are all the Apple Daily executives that are in jail right now. He Zhenyan, Lee Chuk-yen, Lee Chuk-yen, Hang Tong-chao, Benny Tai, Chu Hoi-dik, and all that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you need this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it would be a real sign of goodwill and a sign of, kind of international leadership and standing if China took the occasion of the Olympics to release an amnesty a number of people. I think that would be a great bit of news. It's something that we and others are working for. I mean, we have to be realistic. We have sort of I guess you'd say, a three-pronged approach. We also are very active in the UK. So we are interacting with legislators in the US, the legislative and the executive branch in the US and the UK. Our chairman, of course, is Ambassador James Cunningham, who used to be Consul General in Hong Kong, where I first met him. Later was senior State Department official. Not, he's retired. Nothing. We're not an official government organization, of course. So very active in the US and UK. With increasing outreach into the EU this is on the legislative and government level, active on the media front, and then working, of course, with civil society. A lot of it, quite honestly, is an awareness raising campaign of trying to keep Hong Kong in the frame. It's a big world, of course. There are about 7.5 million people in Hong Kong. Well, fewer now, of course. There's 7.5 billion roughly in the world. So it's hard, a year and a half, 2 years on, to ensure that Hong Kong remains in the news. But I think we and particularly other, longer established NGOs are doing a pretty good job of that. I don't think the world has forgotten about Hong Kong, and we're going to ensure that they don't. So at the very least, we're an irritant, or we want to be an irritant to the CCP, and keep reminding them every single day of what they've done wrong in Hong Kong, and start trying to also show them a way out. I mean, look, it's clear that they have destroyed a culture of political openness in Hong Kong, but it doesn't mean that they have to, keep grinding the city down. And the first place to start, I guess, would be releasing political prisoners. Absent that, I think we may look at more proactive action, and action that, will make it more difficult for Hong Kong officials, for enablers, and for others who are continuing to aid in this crackdown and this repression.
What makes me feel very upset, though, to be honest with you, Mark, is that they still put up like a false pretense that they are they think this is all just, like by arresting, as you alluded to earlier, Jimmy Lai, Joshua, and there are more than 100 people alleged to be in violation of NSL, and more than 700 people are still detained in the 2019 Fight for Freedom movement. So this is worse than Tiananmen, because in 1989, I think they have the 20 most wanted list, like Wu Kaishi, Wang Dan, and all that, right? We have more than 100 people now in jail just on NSL alone. And also Hong Kong, a lot of people are leaving, close to 90,000 last year just to the UK alone. And then I see some sort of like a blood transfusion going on. The old Hong Konger, like yourself, right now you are fighting for freedom in the US and UK, particularly. And so many other people are also doing the same thing, trying to rebuild the whole Lion Rock spirit in many different countries that where Hong Kong people are populated. Vancouver, Toronto, I guess New York, San Francisco, where there's a larger population compared to the other smaller cities. But this is a long fight. And how's Jimmy doing? I know I mentioned it in other shows, but how's everyone's spirit? Not everyone is so-called motivated or still at peace, right? I know some people are not as peaceful. I know long hair, it's very difficult for long hair right now. And I know for people like Lee Chak-yen, he is in his 70s. It's not easy for him. Yeah, it's the first time in jail for.
Yeah. Well, look, let me go back and respond to a couple of things you said. I mean, of course, it's completely outrageous that the basic law is worth less than the paper that it's printed on. I mean, just look at freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of press, the right to a trial by jury, the right to be presumed innocent until convicted. All these things just washed away, right? And the enablers and I'd say the puppets of Beijing, like Carrie Lam, just continue to lie about it. I mean, look, nobody outside of some people in Hong Kong and I guess some people in China, nobody really believes this. I mean, it's a joke. And so they're trying to put a fig leaf. They're trying to put some nice paint on a very, very ugly picture that they have. So, that's where we are. But this diaspora that you mentioned, I mean, it's really interesting. Of course, many of us would rather be in Hong Kong. We'd rather have the Hong Kong that we loved. But you have protests and action. You mentioned all the people going to the UK. I mean, we're seeing significant demonstrations, Human Chain, the kind of Baltic Way demonstrations, and other things. And interestingly, we've seen a lot of attacks and other harassment, sometimes physical attacks by PRC-linked people, including one, ironically, at an anti-Asian hate rally, which was organized by a United Front group in London, in Chinatown, in November. And then when some Hong Kong people showed up, they get beaten up by these mainland thugs. That's a great anti-Asian hate kind of message. Right. I mean, these guys are shameless, but I think we bring the struggle to the West and to play. I mean, the West sort of broadly in terms of, places that are open. We have technology, we have numbers, we have groups, we're able, I think we're able to do a lot. And I think that we will win because we have right on our side. We have truth, we have justice. One of my earliest memories, I told you I'm 64 years old. One of my absolute earliest memories was the Berlin Wall going up. I spent a lot of time in Berlin in the, around 1980, 81. And having seen this go up, having been in Eastern Europe, East Germany, in Berlin, I mean, I never in my lifetime thought that wall was coming down, and it came down. So, the CCP, they've had a good long run, and far be it for me to predict their demise or anything like that. I mean, these are very capable people, and they have a lot of technology, and they're brutal, they're ruthless, and they want nothing more than to keep power. But I don't think anything lasts forever. And I think we have truth, and I think we have justice we have right on our side. And I think that is what sustains people like Jimmy Lai. I'm not in touch with Jimmy directly. So I can't really speak for him, but my sense is that he's got faith, and he, like me, knows even much more than me. I think understands that he's fighting for the right thing, and he's fighting for truth and justice. And I'm sure he has up days and down days, and he's also well into his 70s. Probably wasn't how he was planning to spend his retirement either, but that's what he chose.
And you spent the most time with him as a Guaylo, to be honest, the last few months, right? Like every week you guys host a show and we all watch it.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's ironic. I think the last time I may have seen him, I'm not sure, in person, I'm not positive, but I was going to meet him for breakfast at the end of February 2020, I guess. And so just coming up on 2 years ago. And as I got into the taxi, I saw that there was an email from him. I'm being arrested. I can't meet you for breakfast. And that was the first time he was arrested. And then, of course, we had COVID and other things. So, most of those, unfortunately, those Twitter live streams that you refer to, most of those were not in person. And so, I haven't seen him for a couple of years now. He's a great man. And I mean, I will never meet somebody else like him. He's very brave. Again, I can't speak for how he's doing in prison. Prison does different things to everybody, and very, very few people, have the strength. Say a Nathan Sharansky that we did that Twitter feed with.
Great show.
Incredible. Courage and fortitude. Not many people have that, but anyway, Jimmy is alive. And to your point about Tiananmen, I mean, we haven't yet had people shot down in the streets in Hong Kong. I'm not feeling too good about the new PLA head, who seems to have, spent a lot of time in Xinjiang running an elite commando unit. So I don't think that's really a good sign for the kind of way that the Chinese are approaching Hong Kong. As I say, I think they could back off. They can ease up. I mean, I think they've made their point, there's not going to be a pan-democratic takeover of LegCo anytime soon. But it seems that the CCP is kind of very uncertain and insecure about its rule. It really, really makes one wonder. It's the second largest economy in the world, and obviously the most populous country. And the CCP says that it's got everything under control. You've got a great leader who's about to take on a third term. I mean, what's the problem? I mean, why do they need to punish Hong Kong like this? I mean, I think that's a question they need to ask themselves.
And honestly, let me rephrase something in Cantonese and comment something in Cantonese as well. 嗱，其實講緊咧就係嗰位新疆嚟嗰個駐港部隊咧，其實大家都知道，依家係越嚟越多呢啲咁嘅 news 就係咧將香港變得係越嚟越好似個軍館咁嘅情形。咁但係個問題就係咧，當你冇咗蘋果、冇咗立場就冇咗眾新聞之後咧，其實呢啲 news 咧，本嚟好緊要嘅，香港人咧就唔知道邊啲係緊要與唔緊要嘅。I was just mentioning with Apple Daily and Stand News and Citizen News gone, you talk about that paramilitary guy from Xinjiang. People cannot decipher what news are important and what is not. That's big news when you have a military guy to be in charge, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to look like Tibet and Xinjiang, the way they treat it.
Well, that's what worries me. I mean, people used to be concerned that Hong Kong would become just another Chinese city. I think now we'd be lucky if Hong Kong were just another Chinese city. I mean, I think what we have to be concerned about is that it's treated, as you say, like Tibet or Xinjiang, and it's seen as a kind of restive outer provincial, area that needs to be, beaten into submission.
Right. And I know a lot of people right now in Hong Kong are concerned that their assets could be easily frozen in the name of so-called in violation of the NSL, because they could do it quite arbitrarily. I mean, the speech pathologist is just one example. Stan News is another. I mean, I know Tony Choi, and maybe you know of Tony as well. Great man who started Stand News, and before that under another name, right? Yeah. So with all that said, I hope, and I know some religious leaders from all around the world, they are praying very hard for the Hong Kong situation, especially for those who are aged, like Jimmy. Claudia Mo is not young anymore, even though she looks great, and all that. And a lot of people are praying for them on a daily basis. Talk a little bit more about your book. You have a new book that will come out next week. What's the title and what is it about?
Yeah, the title is Today Hong Kong, Tomorrow the World. And the subtitle is What China's Crackdown Reveals About Its Plans to End Freedom Everywhere. So I think you get the idea. I think your viewers can get the idea. And it's basically the background to what we've just been talking about. I moved to Hong Kong in 1992. I was editor-in-chief of the South China Morning Post, publisher and editor of The Standard, ran the Asia Business Council. I mean, I was lucky enough to really know, a lot of people in Hong Kong. But as you indicated, I was a bystander. I went to Tiananmen vigils sometimes, but I never participated in the demonstration as a participant, as opposed to as an observer, until June 2019. And along the way, I also got a PhD in Hong Kong history. So yeah, I've read a fair amount about Hong Kong. I've been present but on the sidelines, I guess I'd say, for a large part of kind of the end of British colonial rule, and which, by the way, I think was a good thing in many ways. I'm sorry that Hong Kong people didn't get to rule Hong Kong, despite what Deng Xiaoping promised. But I watched what happened, and you've seen, of course, much of it since you came back in 2000. And I wanted to try to explain that to the world. Really, this isn't intended for a Hong Kong audience. It's really intended to show the world how this remarkable city and incredible people who really just wanted to elect the mayor and the city council and just keep their freedom have just been crushed by the CCP. And of course, I didn't expect when I started writing the book that I would, by the end of it, I would sort of be caught up in the events as much as I was. And so it's a narrative that, I mean, it really starts with the Opium War, but concentrates a lot on the last 30 years, really since Margaret Thatcher went to Beijing and was told by Deng Xiaoping that she'd have to give up, Brits would have to give up Hong Kong. But yeah, by the end of it, it's my experience of being caught up in the next digital destruction. So it's not a memoir or a personal book, but it's written a lot more personally than I would have imagined.
Well, I wish you would have some sort of a roadshow for your book in different parts of the world. In fact, I'm going to Ottawa next week, and then Toronto and Vancouver. I wish I could bring some of your books and bring it to the Chinese community to read it, firsthand. But also, if you ever come to Canada, that's where I will spend more time compared to other cities, countries. I wish you can present it live, Mark, because a lot of people read Steve Vine's book last year, and then Steve is now, I think, in the UK, and we need more of these books. I mean, written by people who lived in Hong Kong, who can tell the true Hong Kong story, and it's very important.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, Steve's a great guy. I'm in touch with him. I was really, really great. It's such a loss that people like Steve felt that they had to leave. And, I think if people like us have a role, it's to try to translate what we as foreigners, loved about Hong Kong, and especially the Hong Kong people, to a wider audience, and to make people realize this is a unique place that has just been destroyed, and it's unlike anything in history that a country. I mean, it's even worse than what Stalin did in the 40s. Hong Kong was a place that was prosperous. It was also peaceful. It wasn't like it was right after World War II or something, and these countries were all destroyed. I mean, Hong Kong was fine. Why did these guys have to wreck it? And to try to keep explaining to the rest of the world, why Hong Kong matters so much. I mean, if we can in some small way do that, I think, I can't really speak for Steve, but I'm sure we'd both be very pleased if we have some impact.
Yeah. Would you be interested to come to Canada sometime this year?
Of course.
To the Chinese community?
Of course.
I can be your moderator, to be honest.
I'd love to. Let's try to do it then.
Yeah, you'll be in the limelight because I think, honestly, we have to do it. Otherwise, the whole Hong Kong story will be silent. And even I was in Atlanta, Georgia, Mark, just 10, 12 days ago to commemorate Dr. King's birthday. And some Taiwanese people told me that, Ed, we should start a Hong Kong museum, a Hong Konger museum, because, even like the June 4th Museum in Hong Kong, they shut it down. We need something from Qing Dynasty to up to date to where we are now, with the political prisoners who are alleged to be in violation of NSL. We need that museum in UK, US, Canada, Australia, some places where people care about what's going on. Yeah. Maybe that's a project we should work on as well.
I know that there's someone who's quite prominent, who's got plans for June to recreate, and well, I don't want to say too much about it on air, but a Tiananmen museum. Right. So June 4th. So yeah.
But that's June 4th. But the Hong Kong story, that's a Hong Kong museum.
No, I agree. That's even more ambitious, but it's a good ambition.
Yeah. I was visiting Dr. King's museum, and also there's a Canadian Museum for Human Rights in the middle of nowhere in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it's an 11-story museum, and it becomes like a touristy spot too. So you never know. Like if it is something that is built right, maybe people will go and visit and try to find the true Hong Kong story. Just like people like to go to Jimmy's show with you as the moderator. I mean, the Twitter show, unfortunately, they shut it down, which is sad.
Yeah. It was sad. We had some great people on. It was great hearing Jimmy and yeah, many of our guests. And the fact that kind of just free discussion isn't possible in Hong Kong anymore. I mean, that's such a tangible thing of what we lost. One show here or there, I mean, who cares? But the fact that all free speech is really shut down in Hong Kong. Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. I still can't quite believe it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, more on your book, Today, Hong Kong, Tomorrow, the World, by Mark Clifford. I know there is a hard copy version, and also there's a Kindle version as well, right?
Yep.
I guess under COVID, if people want to just download it from Kindle, when can they start downloading it?
I believe it's February 1st is when the hard copies are available, and I assume that's when Kindle's available. So yeah, just a couple of days, less than a week. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, let me show to the audience how your book looks like. Let me see whether I can find it. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know how much people can see it, but it's obviously a yellow umbrella. It's a bit crumpled and broken on a street in Hong Kong with some, I presume, demonstrators in the background, probably having been chased away by the police. So fairly dramatic image of from a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah. And I hope people keep thinking of Hong Kong and fight for Hong Kong's freedom, and especially those people who watch our show, Etchin Life and Etchin World. They are activists in their own way. That's why they tune into the show, even though it is in English. Yeah. But more will stay tuned to an English show, believe it or not, Mark. I have Etchin World, which is Cantonese, which I'm close to 55,000 subscribers, and Etchin Live, close to 15,000, but it's moving up. So as you can see, the next generation of Hong Kongers definitely they will appreciate the English language more.
Well, look, I think we have to understand that the Hong Kong we know and loved is never coming back. I mean, even if the CCP collapsed, tomorrow, it would take a lot of healing for that for something to happen. And of course, I'm not predicting they're going to collapse tomorrow. So I don't want to say we have to move on, but I mean, how do we keep this Hong Kong spirit, and especially cultural, linguistic, culinary? How do we keep those alive and also just adapt them to new places? Again, the fact that the Hong Kong communities are so alive, so active, and especially so politically active, it's great in the sense it breaks a lot of old stereotypes about, Asians in Western countries. And I think we're seeing, a lot of, very politically engaged Hong Kongers. I mean, they were politically engaged or not in Hong Kong, but they come to the UK and, we find that they're often quite engaged. And so I think that's great. And again, I think technology, of course, it allows people like you, COVID notwithstanding, to move around more easily, to keep networks up. Obviously, technology of this sort allows us to stay in touch and, really be dealing with a worldwide audience, seamlessly. So I'm hopeful that the spirit can be kept alive. I don't know if the place can ever be reclaimed. I mean, we can live in hope, but I wouldn't want to predict when the CCP is going to pull out of Hong Kong.
Right, but we have to build a bigger and stronger overseas Hong Kong community, where you are now in the US, Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, even Calgary. To be honest, I see a lot of people are concerned about what's going on, even though a lot of them have resettled back to Canada or first time to the UK for those BNO holders. So we have to keep the Hong Kong / Lime Rock spirit alive, no doubt.
Well, I think we have to thank people like you who are so active in doing this and reaching out and in building a community and in traveling around. I know you've traveled a lot. You've met you've met a lot of our mutual friends recently, so that's good. And and that's of course one thing that the CCP hates. They hate alliances being built because it reminds them of they think it's all conspiratorial and secretive and like the United Front. And I think we're quite open and we're quite honest about what we believe in. But the more we can work together, the better off I think we'll be.
Right. And congratulations to your new book. And I'm not kidding, Mark. Love to have you physically and not through Zoom to be in the major Canadian cities. I will bring you to Halifax, even to meet up with the community.
That sounds good. I might wait till the weather's a little warmer before going to Halifax, but I'd love to go. I've never been. I've been to a lot of cities in Canada, but not Halifax. So let's try to make that happen. And we'll do more of these virtual things if you'd like. And of course, we'll meet in person. So I think that would be great. And, thank you so much for all your great work and everything you've done for the community.
And thank you, Mark, for writing the book. And again, we'll be available starting February 1st for those who want to buy it through Kindle. But will it be in all bookstores, like Chapters in Canada or Barnes & Noble in the US? Where can you buy?
I know Barnes & Noble ordered a lot. I mean, I can never tell with bookstores. They never seem to have the books that I want, but they can usually get them pretty quickly. So should be in Barnes & Noble. I'm told the publisher is St. Martin's Press, which is part of Macmillan, and they have a strong distributor in Canada, they've told me. So, stay tuned.
Right. And thank you once again, Mark. And let me just do a little bit of my own announcement too, because I will be appearing in Ottawa on January 31st at a restaurant, 3 to 5 p.m., which is the capital city of Canada. And then February 2nd, which is the second day of the Chinese New Year, I'll be in Toronto, 6 to 8 p.m., again, inside a restaurant. And then February 5th, I'll be in Vancouver, 4 to 6 p.m. in downtown, again, inside a restaurant. And for those who are interested for the gathering, please just click under the description box on YouTube, or just email me at ckchin@gmail.com, and we will continue with the Hong Kong story. Thank you so much, Mark, for today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ed, and God bless you as always. It's been a real pleasure.